To begin with, we have the film Stranger with a Camera, a documentary about a misunderstanding gone horribly wrong. Sounds pretty exciting, right? We were then asked to write an essay based around the question that the film had raised for us. I posed the question, how can one depict a culture in a fair light without alienating its people or belittling its customs?
I asked this question with some preconceived ideas about the answer.
I imagined that the answer was something to do with ethical consideration and critical thinking from my experience with English classes and good documentaries.
Do you say what your end thesis is? What your how you answer it?
Well, I kind of answer it. I kind of say that we need to be fair, but also do good things that actually make the documentary interesting. But
I would say that what conclusion you actually come to. Even if it's not a concrete one.
well, that's the thing, is it isn't concrete.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to achieve a concrete definition of this.
So the night before it was due, I stayed up until 1 a.m. writing most of the essay.
Next day, I tiredly walked in class that morning and soon found that the essay was wonderfully received. Something I found to be both lovely and terrible, as it made the process of editing the paper horrible.
Why was it horrible?
What?
Why was it horrible?
It was horrible because when you have people tell you that your work is good, it is very difficult to then actually see all the true things that are wrong with it, or things that could be better with it. There's always something that can be better with your essay. It's just that often you don't see that. How's the sound?
Sounds good.
Then Booth walked into the picture, an exceedingly intelligent scholar that brought to the table ideas of critical understanding that I completely agreed with.
It was horrible.
You see, Booth proposed these ideas of learning how to listen and then working to understand while still making our own point. This idea was not foreign to me, as I had done a lot of work in my life towards understanding that you can disagree with someone and still appreciate the point they're making. So the next day, I went to my conference with my professor, and I got some very helpful advice.
And began to understand how I'm going to get Booth into this essay.
I very slowly edit this paper over a few days, and I just have a very slow time with it. I still can't figure out how to get Booth into the essay in a way that actually does anything, and I'm attempting to refine an argument that works against certain...
Sorry. Is it okay if I stop you when
Yeah.
What do you mean by does anything?
Well, because I'm...
It's very broad.
What I mean by does anything is that I'm in my first draft of the essay, I already make a bunch of points that I think are pretty valid towards essentially the idea of critically understanding your essay, or critically understanding this film and being critically aware as a filmmaker. And then, as I mentioned later on with the existential spiral, I start thinking about why does this essay have to include Booth or Elbow in order for it to be valid? Why can't it just be the work of Gray? Why can't it be an original piece based upon analyzing something else? And that's a certain way of thinking, but then you need to actually kind of consider previous scholars and add to their conversation. Then one day in class, we get this form that we have to fill out as an assignment, and everyone in class just seemed down on the idea.
And of course I leave it alone until the morning it's due.
So the morning it's due, I go to the library and I sit down with this form and I start filling it out. Now, what this form is effectively is a flowchart that is empty and we have to fill with ideas as students. And so I start and I put in the question that I've been using to drive my essay: how can one depict a culture in a fair light without alienating its people or belittling its customs? Pretty good question if you ask me. And I start filling out the form in regards to what I've already written, but then it asks me to question what I've already said. And that's where the magic happens. And before I know it, there's 10 minutes to class, and I head out.
So finally, I can edit my essay's second draft. So the Sunday before it's due, I go to the library and I edit. And suddenly, it's 9:50 and I'm not done.
Fuck. So a bunch of things happen, and I talk to my teacher. And so I'm able to turn in another version of the same draft later, and I do it, and it's good, and we talk about it, and I start thinking about the issue of adding in this elbow person. You see, Elbow is this predicament because he immediately states in his essay that we read in our text that he agrees, for the most part, with Booth, which is really not useful for me, as he's effectively saying the same thing in most of his essay, except at the end, when he starts disagreeing and talking specifically about disagreement, which is an area that I was able to later on, after the writing, in fact, of this script, discover was very useful. And now I've committed to making a video for my retrospective prospective essay. And so now I have to write the script for the video, finish the presentation essay, and shoot the video, and edit it. Not to mention the Tumblr where everything else will be, and the fact that I still have to write most of it.
I don't know that I would say that.
Why wouldn't I say that?
I don't know. It's just like, what's the point?
It's honesty.
Yeah, but still, it's just like, just telling your audience that you have a lot to do. It's like not, the audience isn't gaining anything from that, I feel.
I think they are. I feel like the audience gains an appreciation for the stress that I'm going through. What I'm trying to portray is this stress, this emotional taxing that I have here. Because it is emotionally taxing and it's physically taxing as well. And like, I'm trying to display the fact of how hard it is, not only to write this paper, but also to make this film in tandem with writing this paper. And to like do them both almost literally at the same time. You know, I'm trying, like that's why I say that my audience more or less is the student as well as the teacher, because I think they'll appreciate this emotive quality. They'll be able to relate to it in a way.
And of course, then I go in an existential spiral, asking what even is the purpose of writing this essay, if we are not allowed to define our own way of responding. And I start feeling very angsty about the whole situation.
But then I remember that none of that really matters. So I get out my book, I get out my artifacts, I get out my essays, and I get ready and I start writing, and I hope it comes out. The whole reason I made this project of video and why I included a bit of ranting madness was so that I could experience the same difficulties that I talk about in my essay, and perhaps show these to the audience. I hope I have done this.
Ma chambre a la forme d'une cage. Le soleil passe son bras par la fenêtre. Les chasseurs à ma porte comme les petits soldats qui veulent me prendre. Je ne veux pas travailler, je ne veux pas déjeuner, je veux seulement oublier et puis je fume. Déjà j'ai connu le parfum de l'amour, 1 million de roses n'embaumerait pas autant. Maintenant une seule fleur dans mes